Well, always asking the big questions. What happens after fiat currency? That's the big question, right? And a question like this used to be a question of futility. Although, I mean, for a long time, people have been sounding the alarms that we can't just keep kicking the can down the road. And, well, we can actually. But of course, it comes at the expense of average people like you and I. We know that the elites want to rob us and turn us into slaves, essentially. And so I'm positing the possibility that, hey, we may actually transition into something that might actually be good for society. Well, will it happen? I don't know. I hope so. And I guess this is why I'm here, so that I can prime you to think about the possibility of this and actually have you get the noggin jogging. So ever since 2020, I knew that things were heating up. Essentially, the mask came off. The governments of the entire world, the entire Western world, they went full mask off. And they wanted us to put the mask on. And they wanted us to have the mask on permanently. But of course, I think we got pretty lucky. I think the next thing that's coming up is going to be economy. Well, politics first, and then economy. Actually, before I get there, I do want to remark, there have been a lot of conspiracy theories that have came out since the 2020s. Actually, much before that, but specifically after 2020, that's when a floodgate was open. Quantitatively, we saw a lot of conspiracy theories. Things such as, Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself, adrenochrome, the nature of the monkey jabs that go into our arms, and pharmaceutical companies, and as well, I mean, even more recently, like the ongoing nature of the war that's happening in Eastern Europe, and I'm trying to think of other stuff. Yeah, and even more recently, what's happening in Israel and Palestine. Now, those are all, for me, it's pretty dime a dozen, fairly normal and regular, quote unquote, conspiracy theories, things that, all you have to do is ask who wins, who benefits the most. And you play the game, you do game theory, essentially, and eventually you get to a reasonable enough answer. Now, the thing is, I did not see many conspiracy theories specifically addressing the possibility of a transition out of fiat currency. I only saw one. This one conspiracy that I found that was fairly compelling was that the white hats get into power politically, and they transition us out of this enslavement of our enslavement via economy. In other words, debt enslavement. In other words, just whatever system that we have today, which is fiat currency. And what would happen is we transition from a USD based currency, which is of course fiat currency, is United States dollars. We would transition into something called UST, United States Treasury bills, which is backed by, let's just say, precious metals, specifically gold. Now, that to me was the most compelling, and that is literally the only one that I have somewhere on my computer that I saved. And I think that is a possibility, and I feel like we're actually already moving towards something like that. Now, I'm just going to scroll down here. So yeah, of course, the question is, are we nearing the end of fiat? I think the answer is yes. I don't have a reason. Actually, I do have a reason. Okay. But yeah, before we get there, we have to talk about subject number 2. What are we going to replace it with? And obviously, I think the most reasonable answer is going to be precious metals, specifically gold and silver. Now I can move on to actually looking at the chart specifically for gold. Every bar represents 4 months. And so if we go back to where this thin green line is, what day is that? 2002. So essentially after, let's just say after 9/11, okay? A couple years after 9/11, we started to see a significant increase in gold prices up until 2011. And then we saw a crash. I can't explain why. I don't know what happened in 2011, okay? But we saw a crash, which saw it pretty much half in price. And now, up to 2019, we saw a significant and market pump, mega pump after the mega dump. And here we are. We broke out of this triangle, essentially. And if you follow my Instagram, I did post somewhere around November 2023, right here. I was looking at this. As you can see, I have a parallel channel right here. And I knew that it would break out because I was looking at this mega structure, a very, very, very long and giant triangle mega structure. And I was looking at this and I was saying to my friend, hey, we might actually hit numbers like potentially 10 years or less. We may hit $3,400, almost $4,000. But that's only if we continue to maintain based off of what the system we're using now, which is fiat currency, United States dollars, fiat currency. That doesn't necessarily mean the value of gold in and of itself has changed. It's just the value of the dollar has weakened in the next 10 years, or technically last 10 years, if I'm talking about in the future. So anyways, yeah, as I was mentioning, this is my reasoning for why gold, and actually silver as well. Actually, I do really want to address silver. Same thing. We see a mega structure, a giant mega structure, that indicates that we may be hitting new all-time highs, and something absurd, you know, something unbelievable. I do actually want to go back even further, talking about conspiracy theories with GME, GameStop, AMC, you know, all the meme stocks, you know, a lot of precious metal, I forgot what the meme name is, with a lot of people who are very in the know of silver and gold, precious metals. Silver is one of the most, if not the most heavily manipulated assets on the market. All I know is that it's so insanely manipulated that we may be potentially getting a mega pump on it because it's going to get short squeezed. Yes, that's the reason. If we continue to go down the line of what we're doing right now, which is a managed decline, we may be seeing prices of like $50 within, God knows, like less than 5 years, something like that. $50 per ounce, USD, of course. And so like these are the reasons why I think we may be nearing or returning to an old system, transitioning into something else. Another point of fact, we are in a political transition. If you look at history, we're in that same phase, such as Weimar, or like the end of the Roman civilization, or whatever, the collapse of Rome. I'm also not exactly a history buff, but essentially after every empire, from what I understand, a lot of empires near the end, they took out a lot of money, they took out a lot of loans, they couldn't pay it back, and as a result, their money inflated. They had to debase their currency, just like the way we're experiencing right now, and people still go on. I mean, we still have civilizations all over the places. The question is, what happened after? And what happened after is that they just replaced it with something more sustainable, which is obviously gold-backed. I will also mention, just to answer number 2, Bitcoin is not going to be a replacement. I don't believe it is the currency of governments. I do believe it's the currency. It is a parallel economy that does not replace a gold-backed currency, but works in parallel. That's what I believe Bitcoin is going to be, because Bitcoin, though everything around it will be regulated, such as transactions and companies and know your customer, you know, that kind of stuff, the asset in and of itself cannot be changed. It cannot be manipulated. And that's why I don't believe it's going to have adoption by the government, but it could have mass appeal, but not adoption per se by the people of the entire earth. That's what I believe. It does have a place. It's just not going to be the same as a gold-backed currency, or gold, excuse me. And if we do, let's say we do transition, how are we going to execute that? Well, let's say we do go to precious metals. Is it going to be a painful transition? Is it going to be a fast and hard shock? Or is it going to be a slow and gradual replacement? I don't know. I have no clue. That's going to be an interesting question, because if it's going to be fast and hard, it might be too painful for society, right? We might not be able to, I don't know, pay our mortgage or whatever, right? Again, God knows what's going to happen. But it's going to be painful as long as the prices of these assets are going to go through the roof. I do want to mention, though, countries like Russia, I think after a month, proceeding the when they started initiating war in Ukraine, what had happened was that they dropped VAT, the value added tax, on purchasing gold in Russia. Now, that does not necessarily mean they have adopted a gold-backed currency, but that does indicate some inching towards a currency that has a sustainable value. I don't know, if you know better than me, please leave a comment. And another thing, the second they got sanctioned, that means they were released from being required to use the USD, the petrodollar, in order to trade their oil. What is happening today is that they trade oil with countries, say for example, like India. And what India does is they take that oil and then they sell it back to other third-party nations, for example, China or whomever. Russia can sell it for cheap. They can ask for whatever terms they want, as long as everyone wins, because everyone wins when you have, or whomever party wants to be involved in getting oil for cheap. Everything has oil in every process. I think I want to make the case that we may already be in transition, but in a very slow way, into a gold-backed currency. Like, we may have a pseudo-gold-backed currency already, and we just don't know it. I don't know. Like, again, you know, I'm just throwing out ideas here, and I'm really hoping to get some answers, and more importantly, to prime people for possibility of lots of pain.